Here's Shed. Off the window, no. Roberts tried to get it. Shed for the win. Got it. Jamal Shed plays the hero again.
Back to pass. Donovan Smith. Smith steps up in the pocket, unloads it, throws it all the way downfield into the end zone. Tipped, and it is caught. Caught by the Cougars. Caught for a touchdown. Unbelievable. Caught by Stephon Johnson.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby.
Yes! Welcome to Scott Home Podcast, off-season edition, a real classic of a July episode here, but what I'm pretty excited about because for the second time in 3 years, for the second time in as many times as it's been in the state of Texas, we were at Big 12 Media Days. I use the royal we here. It's actually my co-host, and we got a number of other off-season news topics, some related to Big 12 Media Day and some just your standard Cougar off-season fare. Bobby, wanted to say something I've said off air. Really appreciate you taking time on an off day, going out there to Frisco to take in Big 12 Media Days and give us some content, give us some stuff to talk about tonight. How you doing, friend?
Good, man. It is more than an honor. I think I texted you and I said, I can't believe they're treating us as legitimate media. It always kind of makes me laugh because we're two idiots.
That we are.
the fact they're like, yeah, you guys seem legitimate enough just kind of makes me laugh because I know us. But no, it's really I go because Old Trapper gives you free beef jerky while you're there.
I might have a question about that. That is might come up later.
All right, perfect. So I will let you ask me all that. But no, always kind of cool. It's a usually if like I'm not attending, I don't really care about media days. Like as weird as that sounds, like you'll hear a couple of interesting quotes, like Gundy a couple of years ago saying that, hey, who doesn't drive home after a couple of beers? And you kind of go, wait a minute, what are you talking about here, Mike? But usually, it's a bunch of coach speak, and we're really excited for the season. We think we'll be good. Nobody goes into media days and is like, yeah, I think we'll be 2-10, So it's cool to be there. You can get some really good valuable information from the breakaway interviews, stuff like that. So we'll obviously talk more about that in this episode.
No doubt. A couple of housekeeping items here at the top. This is going to be at the top of this episode description. I'm going to post about it other places eventually here in the next couple of days. But we might be doing a little podcast family feud here with a certain co-host emeritus. And if that sounds interesting to you, if you want to be as much a part of an episode as we ever allow you, the listeners of the show, patrons and non-patrons, please go to the link at the top of this episode description and vote for our future Family Feud episode. And of course, like I always do in this space, please go to patreon.com/shpodcast. The Big 12 Media Days that we're about to talk about here. Bobby just posted everything that he did over there. That's exclusive content for you. You could also get access to all of our summer episodes, including the one we dropped last week about the 2025 football transfer class. Bobby and I dug deep in on a lot of the newest Houston Cougar football players. Any of that sounds good to you? The idea of supporting the longest running Houston Cougar weekly podcast. If that sounds good to you, please go to patreon.com/shpodcast. So I'm going to leave with Big 12 Media Days. As I said at the top, for the second time in these last 3 years here, my intrepid co-host was out in person at the Big 12 Football Media Days in Frisco, roughly in your neck of the woods in the DFW Metroplex. But so you at home didn't have to. Bobby ventured deep into the exurbs of Dallas-Fort Worth to the Star, everyone's favorite auxiliary. It's auxiliary Cowboys place, right?
No, that's now where they do all of their off-season training. It's their headquarters now.
So it's like the equivalent of the artist formerly known or currently known as the Memorial Hermann practice facility over there with the Texans.
Kind of, except it also houses all of their executive offices and whatnot. So everything except for playing games is handled.
Yeah, no, like the Raiders have a similar deal out here in Vegas. They're like their team headquarters for all intents and purposes in Henderson, which is like a suburb about 10 miles southeast. Okay, sounds
pretty much the exact same.
Got it. I was just curious about that. The more relevant topics here, media days are one of those things. I'm not saying I take it for granted that we get credentialed for it. Like that's really cool. But both of the times that you've gone out to this event, 2023 and this year, I've thought afterwards that was actually more interesting than I expected beforehand. Not that I've ever thought to myself, oh, we shouldn't go to this, but the stuff you come away with or the stuff you come away with from this event always exceeds my expectations beforehand. So obviously, as co-hosts of this weekly year-round show and very good friends, we communicate outside of the confines of the show pretty regularly, but I've deliberately tried not to ask you a ton of questions so we can come on here. And
I've noticed that. Like, not that we like playing this, but now that you're mentioning it, I'm like, he really didn't ask me much about me.
Not because I don't think it's like cool as shit that you got credentialed for this, and that I'm not, as much as you all listening, starving for any Houston Cougar football content here, a month and a half still from the season, but deliberately didn't ask you a lot of questions so I can get some insights from your experiences being out there in person at Frisco, talking with Coach Fritz, talking with the players that were present, and just everything else you saw going on with the other Big 12 programs that were there the one day you were at Media Day. So let me kick this off, Bobby. What was the most interesting thing or things that you feel like you learned from talking to Coach Fritz and the players in attendance?
I'll be honest. My number one favorite thing was, I asked Carlos Allen, because I believe it was McCutcheon. Was it McCutcheon? McCutcheon said he was super excited to play Baylor, I believe, right? It's the school he was from. Maybe I'm blanking all of a sudden. Everything kind of is.
And McCutcheon played at OU and USC previously, but
then it was I can't remember. I can't remember exactly what it was, but they said they had that game circled, and I asked,
wasn't that Carlos Allen? Because was it Carlos Allen?
No. Yeah. So somebody said that. They said they were like excited for Baylor. I think it was McCutcheon. I can't exactly remember. But then I said, McCutcheon said he's excited for Baylor. Who are you excited to play, Carlos? And without missing a beat, he goes, Baylor. And then I was kind of like, okay, he's like, Baylor ran the ball on us. I got it circled. Like, he didn't even think about it. You know how sometimes when you ask a question like that, like, who are you looking forward to? It's clear Carlos Allen does not think he had a good game against Baylor, and he is ready to make amends for that. And that defense is ready to make amends for that. And I thought that was really interesting just because, like, you don't hear that very often. You don't hear somebody answer that directly, that's who we're looking to play. Especially at stuff like media days, it's like, oh, we take it one game at a time or blah, 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 something like that. And to hear him answer that quickly, that direct, he knew that question was coming somehow, and he was ready to go with an answer. I found that very interesting.
What is the coolest thing about the in-person Big 12 Media Day experience that those of us, me, everyone listening, everyone who's following along at home, maybe don't know about? Something you may not get unless you're actually like on the ground there at the event.
I'm actually going to go back to your previous question because one more thing popped in my head. Sorry.
Go for it. Yeah.
Coach Fritz, I asked him about Coach, the new OC, Coach Nagel, coming in, and how much of this offense is going to look like what we saw versus Tulane. And he said, you're going to see a lot of those concepts, but he picked up a few formations and a few motions and ideas at LSU last year, a team that was really good at throwing the ball. Coach Fritz said, we'll be at practice and he'll throw something in there. And Coach Fritz said he kind of stands back and is like, oh, that's new. I've never seen that before. And I think that's really cool. A nice little, he did learn something and pick it up last year at LSU. I think that's pretty cool there. So that was another cool thing. And then the cool thing about the in-person experience, they always have the national championship trophy there, and it's the real one, not a replica. And they make sure you know that because there's signs that's like, please don't touch me, I'm the real trophy. So that's always kind of cool. And then to see all the helmets up close and personal because they have them up on the stand, I think that's a really cool thing as well. And then you see the talking points for all the other teams and what the other schools, like the newspapers that cover them, the radio stations that cover them, what they think of their team and what they think of your team. I think that's always a really interesting aspect to it. You get a lot of different insights. It's easy to get caught up in our bubble, or even like a Texas bubble. But to see what the guys who who are in Tulsa, Oklahoma think of U of H and what this may look like is very eye-opening at times.
I was getting related to that. Were the scrums more or the same attended for Fritz and the U of H players versus when you were there 2 years ago?
I think they were pretty close to the same. I think the problem for U of H is, one, we don't have a coach that's going to get big scrums in the first place. We're not Dion. There's no Gundy here, but the other thing is team success. You kind of fall to the back. You're the first press conference on day 2, right? You're just kind of there. Especially this year you had, UCF kind of feels like there's somebody who just kind of falls back to you as well. But they had Scott Frost coming home. There's a lot of stories there. But
he said some quotable stuff also at this one as well.
And then, also to be honest with you, the last time I was at one, U of H was the new guy to the conference. So you're going to get a lot of people trying to come in and get a feel for Holgerson. You also had Coach Holgerson, who is good for a quote here and there, if we're being honest with each other. So I think Fritz is kind of boring, which is what we kind of like about him. I know you and I, one of our running jokes is like his hobby is watching film. Like he just kind of has that vibe, which I love. Like it seems like the thing he enjoys doing is like just watching football film. He's a coach's coach. So I would say they're a little bit smaller, but I think there's reasons why. You're never going to have the scrum of a Dion, of a Rich Rod, something like that, who's coming back to a school.
And you kind of started to answer this, but last time you were at this event, it was obviously a different U of H head coach there, Dana Holgerson, different players, because that just changes, over multiple years. Not that the vibes were bad last time you were there in 2023 from my memory, but what did you notice, if anything, in terms of difference between the UH contingent you talked to last time versus this most recent one last week?
I think the vibes were good at the last one I was at because it was the first year in the Big 12 and there was all that excitement behind it. I would say the vibes are more serious under this coaching staff. And just, we're here for business. We're here for football. We're not here to make a name for ourselves. That's what the players constantly talked about is, I tried to get a couple. If you listen to some of the premium content, I asked the question of what are some individual goals. We've talked team a lot, and they just would be like, and you kind of expect that, but at the same time, you think somebody would be like,
Stephon Johnson. I think I saw a quote from him, like it was like not be 4-8 again or something to that effect.
Yeah. 4-8's of the past kind of deal. And you kind of, when you think about it, you're like, well, you would have thought one guy would have said like, oh, I want to be all Big 12 this year, or I want to, Carlos Allen, I want to average a sack a game or whatever it is. But you didn't hear any of that. Coach Fritz is just a consummate professional, man. That guy, he'll give you a good quote here and there, but not like an explosive quote, but he'll give you some he'll tell you what he's thinking. And so it's really interesting. There's all the regular players there, or all the regular players in like the media there. I think as this team gets better, you'll see more and more non-Houston media kind of being there for it.
I have a decent idea where you're going to go with this one, but what was the most interesting non-U of H thing? Whether that's an interview that you just happened to be around, a quote that went viral, display, really anything that you witnessed on the day you were there in person?
I think I texted you this, and I don't know if you think it's going to be my answer, but Coach Gundy does not like every quote he gave. I think I texted you. I said, this man hates his job. Like, he hates what college football has become. And like, Saban quit. Like, he hated it too. Like, but all he would talk about is like, well, now what all we could do. And I think my joke I was talking to other media members about this, and I was like, my brother in Christ, they tried to fire you. Like, you could have left. They would have bought you out. They didn't want you there. Like, you took a pay cut to be here. Why are you here? Like, he was miserable. He was absolutely miserable. And then, kind of another runner-up is, this might be what you were thinking I was going to answer, is the Dion press conference. Dion is a character, man. And
he's a great quote. You could say a lot of things about Dion, not all of them good, and most of them true. The man's a good quote. The man's a story.
And the guy just he has a way about him, and people just buy in. Like his first question, like it seems little and it seems pandering, and it pisses media members off on things like this. But like his first question, he was like, "And you know what? I'm only gonna take a question from a woman. That's what I want to do. First question comes from a woman. Pick one of these wonderful females that are in our audience that are out here working hard." And like, you go, that's cheesy, corny, but it plays, man. It plays, and it's just like, and then like, who was it? I can't remember. Oh, was it The Athletic?
Yeah, it was The Athletic, or at least you when you're in the text you told me he was mad at someone at The Athletic, and so he didn't answer their question, didn't take it or something.
Yeah. So they have you say your name and who you're with, which also, when I ask Coach Fritz a question, it's weird being like, the Scott Holman podcast. Like I could feel everyone roll their eyes.
Excuse me, Robert, insert last name here from the Scott Holman podcast.
And so you just feel all like the traditional newspaper guys, like this fucking guy, right? Like Duarte, who we love and likes us and everything, is just like, oh God, don't ask a stupid question. Like you just feel it's very much imposter syndrome. But Dion goes to ask the guy from The Athletic says it, and he asks his question, and Dion just goes, The Athletic's on a bunch of bull junk. He wouldn't say bullshit. He just said bull junk, and it's like, Dion, we know what you mean. He'd be like,
he's not cursing. He's not a cursing guy, apparently.
Yeah, and he's like, we're The Athletic's on a bunch of bull junk, so I'm not gonna say much to you. And you're just like, that sucks, man. But it plays. Like, if you're a Colorado fan, don't you kind of love that?
Yeah, it's red meat for the fan base for sure.
Yeah, and he's so good at giving everybody red meat. And then like, he wouldn't say love you to death. He would say love you to life. Which is weird because the phrase isn't like, I'm going to love you till I kill you. It's like, I'm going to love you until I die. But he's like, I love you to life. And it's like, that doesn't work. But like, he's Dion, so it works. And he knows how to play to the audience, right? He goes, and another thing I want to thank, you're allowed to give a statement. He gives his little statement. He's like, you know what? I forgot to mention somebody. Michael Irvin's over there. Michael, it means so much to me that you're here. Thank you so much. I love you to life. And you're just like, Michael Irvin is at media days, and he's only there because of Dion. So like
you and Michael Irvin, Big 12 credentialed media, at least part-time residents of the DFW Metroplex. So you guys I gotta say, you and Michael Irvin got a lot in common here.
And then another fun one, somebody who like follows wrestling. I wouldn't say I watch it. The Big 12.
Oh yeah, because Big 12's got a lot of partnerships there. Yeah,
Big 12 has that partnership, and they brought in a wrestler who just I've always kind of liked. And watching him do his interview, and
which one was it?
His name's Big E.
Okay.
And so it was really it was cool just kind of see him because you see him on TV, and I've always thought he's like 6'4", and then he gets in front of me, I'm like, that dude's 5'10". Okay, cool, but he's a massive human being.
Yeah. Saving the most important question for later on here: favorite item of media swag or like free thing you got or consumed at this event? Because obviously you got a decent amount of them. I saw the texts. I saw at least a post or two. Let's hear it.
Yeah. Okay. So I would say
you can have multiple, but I'm limiting you to 2 here. Okay.
Okay. Number one's always the mini bags of jerky. They give you a good size bag. See, the last one I was at, just kind of funny. They would give you the full size bag, and by the end of it, they're just trying to get rid of it so you can't take it. So they don't have to like pack it up and take it home. This one, they gave everybody like a bag like this, but free beef jerky's always a play for me, and the Old Trapper stuff's pretty good. And then I would say low key, like they have like the snack table, right? And there's chips and all that. They were giving away full bags of candy, like full size bags. And so like M&M's, they had Skittles, sour Skittles, full bags of sour Skittles, full bags of Sour Patch Kids. I was like, yeah, sign me up. I think I probably ate 9 bags of Sour Patch Kids that day because they're just there. And you walk by the table and you're like, yeah, I do want one of those.
That's as I say, I've probably eaten like 2 bags in the last like 5 years, but if like that much of it free was in front of me, like it's a good
They also
price,
had
man.
Dutch.
Hard sell
They
not
had
to.
Dutch brothers there. They had the Dutch brothers there.
Dutch Bros.
Dutch Bros. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, there were people walking around with dogs, like, and you
Wait,
could just
is it free Dutch? Sorry, free Dutch Bros.
yeah. They have like their
That's my. I don't really get coffee out much anymore, but that's like when I do, like a few times a month. That's the place. I didn't know, that's cool.
And then the other one that I decided not to get, but I really wanted to, was they had like Habitat for Animals deal.
That's right.
And you could literally they were walking around with puppies in slings, and you just filled out the adoption paperwork, and it was $0 to take a dog home with you, and I was very tempted.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's been said by many times, and I don't think we're breaking any new ground by saying this, but the Big 12 is good at the promotional stuff.
Oh yeah,
and it's too easy to ascribe that to Brett Yormark specifically. Like, I think a lot of very, I think, talented people make that happen. But like, it's for whatever you want to say about this league. Like, I think it does a good job promoting itself, and I think the commercial tie-ins are good. And we're not just saying like, we're not saying this to curry favor here. We're not like, if it was lame, if it was a bad experience, we'd just say that. We'd just be like, oh yeah, this is, this wasn't good, that wasn't good. Like, they put on a good show.
Yep.
And
they certainly do that.
They get criticized, not even 100% incorrectly, or certain corners. Like, okay, like, this seems a little try hard. Like, I'd rather my conference be a little try hard. I'd rather my conference be thinking about new stuff, thinking about what the sport's going to look like in the future, because I don't think it's unfair to say the previous regimes in this conference were always caught flat-footed by every new development, and that's for any of Brett Yormark and his team's faults. Like, that's not happening now.
I agree 100%. Look, at the end of the day, it's a media days, right? It's coaches giving press conferences, but if you can make
They're not
it
splitting
fun,
the atom here,
Yeah, if you can make it fun and make it not miserable for media to show up to your event, I think you're doing all right there.
Yeah. Anything else that I didn't ask you about that it's worth mentioning for time Big 12 Media Days?
I think you did a good job. It was I asked the players what their favorite part of Media Day was, and they were like, the Fox Sports Room was awesome. And that's where they film all of their stuff for like commercial breaks.
Oh, nice.
Right? When they come back and they got the lasers behind them and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
all the players filmed that for CBS, Fox. They filmed that that day. So that's why it's always like the same 5 guys in all of them. It's because that's when they filmed them.
That's really cool.
And so they were like, man, the setup that Fox had was insane. And then like they showed me a video from it, and they were like, I don't know what they use it for. And I was like, that's what we see when they come back from commercial. That's what we're seeing on the TV screen. And they were like, oh, so yeah, that was pretty cool.
That's cool. This next topic, we wanted to spin this off from Media Days because it's a topic that emerged kind of around Media Days, but maybe not directly related. A topic that won't die a quiet metaphorical death like I wish it would. That is the talk of U of H and the University of Central Florida becoming a sort of space-themed rivalry trophy game. It's always kind of been this on-again, off-again topic, even dating back to our days in the American Conference with UCF being a fellow member, but seems like it's gotten more steam and more ink and more talking around it in recent days. Bobby, can I lead off with my thoughts on this? I'm not going to monopolize our time here.
Please, buddy.
One of those things, and I think we both agree on this pretty wholeheartedly, that makes college football still the most compelling and interesting brand of football in the world are the rivalries. And this is something you and I have talked about off air, just among each other as friends. Pro football, the NFL specifically, is of course the highest level of football. College will never equal it there because the NFL is the collection of the very best of the best from the college game. Not really breaking any new ground by saying that. I know there are pro football rivalries where the fans care a lot. Eagles, Cowboys, Eagles, Commanders, that kind of stuff. But in a league where players can move around like they do in the NFL, it's hard for me to really believe those players care that much. And yes, college football has become a more professionalized version of itself and more fitting of the general description of pro football players they just gave, moving year to year and that kind of thing. But you still have the rivalries and you still have more juice for those rivalry games. And for my money, a rivalry has to have 2 key components. It's an either or, but I think if you have both, it makes it the strongest. You have to have regional ties. You have to have at least a chance for the two respective schools, fans and players to have extensive contact with each other in real life. I mean, the example is coworkers that went to this school, players who would have played ball against each other in high school. I think that is the most essential ingredient to a successful rivalry, those regional ties. And I don't think there's any aspect of a rivalry that makes it more sustainable than shared regionality. Actually having a chance of encountering that opposing school's fans in your day-to-day life. And I think the second one is on court or on field or on whatever surface beef. Because we saw from our years in Conference USA and the American that you can develop games with real juice against opponents that maybe don't share any strong regional ties just from having compelling games with a healthy amount of sports hate between the two fan bases. I think one of the best examples of that, and my co-host here still has a white-hot hatred of the University of Tulsa from 20-ish years ago. He's shaking his head, not shaking his head in disagreement, shaking his head thinking about how much he hates Tulsa. From back when Todd Graham was their football head coach in the mid to late aughts. They ran up the score on us 56-7 at Tulsa, a game that the two of us and our co-host emeritus unfortunately bust up to see in person in 2007. Next year, U of H hammers Tulsa in their top 25, 70-30 at the old Robertson Stadium. And then you have the game that we've immortalized the call from every year we've done this podcast or intro. U of H erasing an 11-point deficit in less than 2 minutes, and young kicker Matt Hogan nailing a 51-yard field goal to walk it off in Tulsa, stay undefeated. Or not stay undefeated. That was 2 seasons later where U of H capped off their undefeated 2011 regular season by smacking Tulsa. At Tulsa game, I believe you were in person for, Bobby. Won't say what you said afterwards, but a game he was in person for. That was two schools developing organic competitive rivalry without regionality. You also had Memphis and U of H men's basketball, I think, developing a pretty organic rivalry after Penny Hardaway got there, and they started signing classes full of highly rated guys who never amounted to anything in college. That was a game with a lot of sniping between the fan. Oh, sorry. Am I still salty about those fucking losers? Anyway, but they beat us some years where we didn't lose very often. We will admit they did beat us at some times that made us pretty pissed off about it. We also he had Tremont Mark hitting a half-court shot in 2021. The regular season finale beat them there. Jamal Shed winning the 23 regular season finale. The last game that U of H will ever play at the FedEx Forum was ended by Jamal Shed. Number one
God
remains
willing.
number one. Well. And you had multiple multi-touchdown comebacks in football over Memphis too. You had Memphis beating us in some painful football games as well. Yep. Some multiple comeback wins during that stretch as well. That didn't have shared regionality, but I think no one would argue over that period that there wasn't bad blood between U of H and Memphis. The fans, the teams, like it met most definitions of a rivalry. And by no fault of UCF and their fans, despite sharing two conferences, there's never been a U of H UCF athletic contest where I felt anything other than my usual default of wanting to see the Cougars win. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we're now sharing our third conference and no organic rivalry has developed. Why is now any different as board writers and content creators try to make a story out of something during the slowest part of the college sports season? I don't see it.
Dude, that's the thing that amazed me at Media Days is no coaches, no players, no anything mentioned a rivalry, and then all the media on both sides. And I'm standing there because, again, I consider myself a fan first, not a media member first. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, why are we forcing this? Like, I don't hate UCF. I've never interacted with you. I mean, I have.
Their online fans are annoying, but that, like, every other fan base would say that. Yeah.
I hate some of our fan base, right? Like, I get into it with some of our fan base. I wouldn't know who they are specifically because they refuse to actually say their names and anything like that. But that's neither here nor there. And yes, I love to troll UCF fans about their stupid stadium that bounces because they have crappy engineers. I love to call them the University of Central Florida Golden Knights. I love calling them that because it gets under their skin a little bit. But at the end of the day, I don't care. Like, I want to what you said, I just want U of H to beat them. I was at their stadium for a basketball game. There was no ill will, bad blood between anybody there. We did a little bit of trash talk, right? Which you are supposed to do when you have anybody in your stadium that's an opponent, right? Cheering them on. Good, fun trash talk between you two is always great, as long as it doesn't turn violent and you start cursing at each other or anything like that. But like, there wasn't ill will. There was nothing more than a fan just goofing with somebody who's cheering for the other team when I've gone to UCF. Like, I don't have, but all because there's this stupid link between space. Like, it's so forced and it's just not even clever. Like, if you told me I could have UCF every year, or I could have one of the other 3 Texas schools, I know which one I'm taking every single time. Every single time I am taking a Texas school. If you want to force, and if you want to say like, oh, Baylor and TCU are rivals and Tech has their rivalry with TCU, or like Tech and Oklahoma State are regional rivalries because of their connection to oil, or whatever it is. U of H needs to be in that. I think the problem is not, I've said this multiple times, U of H doesn't have a rival. I've said this on the big 10-12 network podcast, right? I've said it there. It's just like, we don't have a rival. As much as I would love one, and as much as our fan base, especially our older fan base, thinks that our rival is Texas or Texas A&M, it's not. They don't think about us. They don't care about us. But I'll tell you, if you want to,
painful truth, but it is the truth, unfortunately.
We've played Texas one time in the 20 years I've been a fan of this football team. That's it. They're not a rival. And you know, and only one school, if we want to talk about juice and things like that, U of H's rival, if you are going to force one, should be Texas Tech.
Yeah.
What were they chanting at Wani at, like, when he's at the foul line this year? I think it was Wani, and they're chanting, you know, he's a blank, right? That only happens if you're a rivalry. That only happens if there's a rivalry. When they're in Houston, and a rivalry can be basketball. A rivalry can start with basketball. Memphis, perfect example.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But you'll never hear UCF fans chanting that at Wani Roberts.
No.
You'll never hear it. Because it's not that there's no juice, right? Like, I hate Taco Fall because I was at the game, like one of the first games U of H lost in Fertitta Center.
The first.
The first. I was at that game. So, like, I will always be like, God, I hate UCF, right? But, like, at the end of the day, if UCF made a run in the tournament, I'd be like, good for UCF. But
I was rooting for that same UCF team, the 2018-19 team, to beat Duke. I was rooting like hell for them while we were at the round of 32 game. Or the game
I'll tell you what I don't do.
Game.
I'll tell you what I don't do. I definitely sure shit don't root for Texas Tech to win in the NCAA tournament.
Exactly.
I sure shit don't cheer for Baylor to win in the NCAA tournament. I sure shit don't cheer for Baylor to beat literally anybody.
I would root for just about any other Division I program over those two schools. Like, it's a tiny list that I would be like,
Dude,
yeah, I think I'll ride with Tech or Baylor here.
You ready? Here's something I'm gonna say that I haven't said on the podcast. I kind of wanted Texas to win the Women's College World Series. That way I didn't have to listen to Tech talk about how good they were. I don't even pay attention to Texas fans anymore. Like,
I get it. Like, they win another natty, it's like, whatever. Like, they just do that, you know?
But Tech, oh, God, I'd have to hear them. Oh, but we won. Oh, tell me about yourself. Oh, my God, yes. Texas wins another natty and something like, guy who spends big money gets attractive woman. No shit. Like, yeah. But guy who spends big money and then doesn't get the woman, I like that story a lot. That's hilarious. Couldn't happen to a better fan base. After what they said at Tawani, dude, to your point, there aren't many teams that, and like, to be honest, I don't hate TCU like that.
No,
but that's what made SMU so great. That's why I'm glad we left them behind. But also at the same time, if they were going to go to any conference, I was kind of hoping they came to the Big 12. Imagine you have that SMU-TCU rivalry, but then you have the Dallas-Houston. That's more of a rivalry. If you told me I could play UCF every year or I could play SMU every year, just as a rival, I take SMU 99% of the time. And I hate
honestly,
SMU.
I think I would have answered that differently 2 years ago, but now I would almost I'd rather swap them out for one of the Eastern schools, give us more of a Texas presence. Yeah, no, I'm actually kind of with you on that.
And so, like, there's no rivalry with UCF. It very much feels like the civil conflict, right? Where you're trying to drum something up just because you need a rivalry, and rivalries don't happen artificially. You have to naturally have a rivalry. It has to build. It has to start. You can't just say this game is important and it's important. The first Super Bowl was important because it was the championship game, but it didn't really become that. It has the cachet that it does now because of the years it's been built up. Cowboys-Eagles wasn't a huge game the first time they played. But guess what? It's a big one now. Why? Because of the history that has happened there. And you can say U of H doesn't have that history with these schools, but we're building it. There has to be, to your point, the regionality or I see, like in the NFL, it works because you see the same teams twice a year. And the fan bases can interact and they'll sometimes see each other in the playoffs or anything like that. That doesn't happen in college. It has to be once a year. You got to have the regionality. And yeah, like, would I cheer for UCF's softball team over Texas 100% of the time?
Yep.
I did not cheer for Texas Tech over Texas.
The whole thing feels like this AstroTurfed effort made up of almost entirely people who aren't U of H or UCF fans or alums, who see this superficial connection between two major metropolitan areas and are like, let's make a game out of the superficial connection. And it skips two pretty basic facts I think we've covered here, even if not in this exact word structure. Do these two fan bases care about games against this opponent more than the average Big 12 conference game? No. Unless it's a situation where U of H men's basketball is an elite program that UCF could get a signature win against, or a hypothetical future football game where the winner between U of H or UCF puts themselves in position to go to the Big 12 title game. That has juice, but that's juice independent of playing this opponent. Basically, unless there are external factors, this is just another game for both fan bases unless something drastically changes. And the other main question, I think, is does at least one of these teams involved annually have other games it cares about a lot more? I don't know how to answer this one for UCF because they are a bit more on an island geographically in the Big 12. But for U of H, you said it earlier. You can emphatically answer that question as a yes. U of H fans care a lot more about games with Texas Tech, Baylor, and TCU, kind of roughly in that order. Because these aren't Oklahoma State, probably. These aren't just in-state opponents with the Southwest Conference history. There have been actual games with drama and bad blood, at least with Tech and Baylor and U of H, even in a pretty brief time in the Big 12.
And like recent, in the Big 12. Baylor versus U of H. I was at that game in Waco. Brother, those guys did not want to lose to us, and they were loud for yes, it would have been a big win for them, but like the tickets weren't cheap. It was not there was definite juice in that game.
I gotta tell you that something related to this that has really it felt like it's drilled a hole in my brain that I've not been able to patch. Cron.com wrote some slop about this, and there's a subhead in there that says, quote, "The Big 12 is lacking on the rivalry front. Could a NASA-themed feud between," I guess this is supposed to say the here, between Be the Fix? And I guess credit to Cron.com for writing something that I actually thought about. It's made me seethe for multiple days now, but saying this about the first league that U of H has been in almost 30 years that actually contains multiple historic rivals is one of the dumber things I've had to think about, read, process in any way in a long while.
Dude, and just because you add a trophy doesn't mean it's a rivalry. It's like, to that point, that's ignoring Kansas State. That's ignoring Kansas State versus Iowa State. That's ignoring TCU versus Baylor. That's ignoring Tech versus TCU. Like, Tech versus TCU is a rivalry, not because there's no trophy, so it's not a... No, it's a rivalry because the Tech fans bought up all the tickets for the TCU game last year, and it was hilarious watching TCU fans on Twitter looking at their thing and going, "Oh my god,
dog can't dunk a basketball."
this
is against the rules.
Yeah, and so that's what makes a rivalry. And just like Big 12 has plenty of rivalries. There's not a lot of trophies. Like, no one's playing for a bunch of trophies in here. I'm not gonna sit here and say that, but that doesn't mean that there's not rivalries.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to end this on a slightly more positive note. If the two schools agree on a cool looking trophy, maybe like a space helmet, one of our followers suggested one that looks like a moon rock, and the game, and this is the most important part, the game is not forced to be on both teams' schedules every year, I'd be fine with it. I wouldn't be enthusiastic about it, but
I'm not opposed to having a trophy game.
I said, maybe add a charitable component, and then you add a charitable component, I'm pretty enthusiastically on board. Something for a Houston area food bank and an Orlando area food bank. Like, I think that would be great. I think that would be really cool, and I would definitely be on board with it. But I think our general point here, at the risk of speaking for you, is that it's not a rivalry unless something drastically changes, and I think you could get U of H and UCF fans largely to agree on that.
Yeah. What was the result of our poll?
Ooh. It's technically going to be still open after this, but when you hear the results, I don't think you will expect much to change. Any and all, I guess, caveats that, because I see this, and I don't give it my day job, but I see stuff cited as like, oh, I did this Twitter poll of this. It's like that's not how this thing is actually accurately measured. There's not actual science behind this. So
right.
Saying that, and also acknowledging that, like, I can't keep only, even asking nicely, I can't keep only U of H and UCF fans from voting on this. 66.9 to 33.1% no is winning to the question of, would you want an annual football trophy game rivalry between the schools? I think if you just said, would you want there to be a trophy played for in a non-annual game, I don't think it would be 67 to 33 or 68-32. I think it would be a little closer to 50-50.
Yeah, I'm okay. I don't want it to be like, oh, we need like a protected rivalry that, oh, these two schools have to play each other every year. If you're telling me I have a protected rivalry with UCF and that means I don't get to play Baylor in a year, like, no.
And UCF fans, I'm very confident saying, would be like, would you rather have Houston or a new school that you haven't seen much of previously? They're almost all going to say new school we haven't seen previously. Like, and that's no shot at the Cougars. Like, we've been in a conference. Would you rather
play U of H or Oklahoma State? It's like, no.
Oklahoma State. Would you rather play? Ask us. Would you rather play UCF or one of the new Western schools? New Western school.
Yeah, I'd rather play West Virginia every year than play UCF.
Yeah, it's a matter. It's being a new conference. We've spent most of the century in the same conference. There've been some good games, but a rivalry none of this makes, and I think that's our repeated point on the subject.
Yep.
A couple pieces of Cougar news, both of them positive, both of them we're very excited to talk about. Mentioned it briefly last week, but that the MLB Draft was coming up, and one of our absolute favorite recent Cougar athletes, lefty pitcher Antoine Jean, got to do what very few baseball players get to do, and was picked in the 2025 MLB Draft yesterday by the Colorado Rockies, the 197th overall pick in the early part of the draft's 7th round. Even in the present day draft structure where it's shortened to 20 rounds overall, especially I guess now, getting taken in the 7th round, I think gives John decent stats now in the Rockies minor league system. And given his injury history before he got to U of H and being an older college prospect, feels pretty cool. Feels like he's in a good spot for a 6th-year guy who, before having just a transcendent year this year, had some injury baggage.
Yeah, just really cool overall. Do I love the fact that he went to Colorado? No, but not the best location for pitchers. But overall, probably about where you thought he was. To your point, some injury problems there, as well as he's a senior. And when you run out of eligibility, teams know they can get you for pretty cheap. It's the way they build their farm system. And I would expect to see him kind of be high A, double A maybe, especially with his advanced age. We'll probably see him on the field this year. Not at the MLB level, but probably at
and also I think
in the minors.
College guys who throw a full season, they usually go on the lighter side.
Yeah.
Their first year, they're not going to have them throw 100 innings after throwing almost 100 innings in college.
Absolutely.
And just a reminder, if you're less familiar, unlike most U.S. pro sports, as this is baseball, you just mentioned, Bobby, there's going to be some time between now and when Antoine Jean theoretically is a candidate to actually get promoted to the Rockies MLB team. And if that time comes, it's worth acknowledging that Colorado is a very challenging environment to be a Major League Baseball pitcher. But I think considering where Jean was 12 months ago, he was coming off a 2024 season where he was healthy, which was good, but had about a 6 ERA, was pretty ineffective once the team got to Big 12 play. The fact that he had another healthy season and was one of the best pitchers in college baseball has to feel like he's living a dream right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, man. It's just really cool to just get drafted overall. That's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, we're going to be definitely following his progress along in the farms for the Rockies. And we saw another Cougar player from this most recent team, Connor McGinnis, get taken by the New York Yankees in the 10th round with the 314th overall draft pick. He wasn't really able to have as much of an impact as we hoped in the preseason due to injuries, but when he was healthy, the bat was absolutely D1 level. Hit for a 343 average, OPS to well over 1,000, 4 homers and 25 RBI and only 132 plate appearances. And that was kind of the book I remember on Connor McGinnis coming into the most recent season. We previewed it from junior college ball. Great hitter, when healthy. And unfortunately, we got that kind of experience by no fault of Mr. McGinnis. I mean, we could make jokes about the Yankees and our two historic feelings about that franchise. Obviously, speak for both of us also in saying that we hope that Connor McGinnis has a good run through the Yankees farm system and that his next few years are healthier than the last few. Because what we've seen of this guy in the college game, junior college and D1, is a pro-level bat, and clearly the Yankees agreed.
Yeah, definitely. To your point, the injuries are what's been holding him back, and you really hope that he is healthy. All feelings about the Yankees aside, but yeah, hopefully you see him kind of tear it up and stay healthy. Maybe getting in a big league training program will help. I know you see that quite often. Guys get in with better doctors, better trainers. Not that there's like a shot at ours, but I'm sure the Yankees are paying their athletic train. The Yankees are paying their doctors a lot more than U of H is paying theirs.
Well, and this is not me refuting this. I genuinely have no idea, but also like every so often you hear about like minor league baseball and just like these billion-dollar organizations that just like, wait a minute, like a minor league coach makes $5,000 a season or something like that. You know what I mean? But other news, last but not least, we had some pretty sizable football recruiting news from the last week since we sat down and recorded a podcast. And that news was 2 different 4-star recruits, athlete Paris Melvin Jr. from Cy Springs in the northwest side of Houston, and receiver Jaden Warren from Iowa County High School down in Brazoria County. Obviously, Bobby and I aren't watching Cy Springs and Iowa Colony High week in, week out here, but I saw some quick things that really stood out to me about both guys. With Paris Melvin Jr., there are a lot of times, Bobby, you see a recruit listed as an athlete, but you can pretty quickly figure out, okay, this guy is most likely to be at the next level, a receiver, a defensive back, a pass rushing defensive end, that kind of stuff. And with Melvin, that's absolutely still an open question what he's going to be at the next level in an exciting way. He legitimately in the most recent season as a junior played running back, receiver, cornerback, and even took snaps at quarterback. He had a passing touchdown and a few completions last year as kind of a wildcat direct snap style quarterback, but clearly when they at least trusted occasionally on a trick play pass, he's probably not going to be landing as a quarterback in the future, but any of those other 3 positions I think are a distinct possibility. And the other thing with him that really stood out to me, he was on Cy Springs, a 6A state championship winning 4x100 relay this past spring. And if you're fast enough to be a large school Texas track and field state champion, that means you're one of the fastest recruits in the entire country, given how good Texas track is. And U of H has definitely done well historically at developing super quick guys into guys with actual football skills. So from someone who's lived that, that's a really exciting commitment. That's something that really jumped off the page at me. I don't have as much on Jaden Warren, but similar to that last point I had on Paris Melvin Jr., Warren's also an elite speedster. In his 247 Sports eval, they mentioned him being a 10.1 second, 10.2 second kind of guy in the 100 meter dash. Those times, Bobby, will put you on the podium for a lot of Division I conferences at their championship meet. And that's what this guy's running as a junior in high school. I mean, I think a bit less of a mystery, obviously, where he's going to play at the next level. At least he's going to probably start at receiver, but clearly a burner, and I'll always be fine with U of H betting on guys who flash elite speed and counting on coaching them up and bulking them up once they get to this level.
Yeah, my favorite stat on Jaden Warren is 26 receptions. How many touchdowns, Sam?
I didn't even, 12?
14 touchdowns. So over half of his receptions are touchdowns.
Pretty good.
That's insane, man. As a junior, that's insane. And again, he's not playing 1A football. He's not playing 7-on-7. That's wild.
He's playing Brazoria, where he's nearly every team in his district, I'm sure, has D1 guys plural on their rosters.
23.6 yards per reception. That's just crazy, man.
Pretty good.
You love to see it. I think the more kind of big picture thing here is, how much does that Keeson Henderson commit mean? You saw him actively recruiting guys on Twitter, saying you need to stay home and all of that. You see that. It very much, when you get a guy like that, it very much is a kind of do you remember when the big threes were happening in the NBA, and it was oh yeah, they met each other while playing for the NBA national team, and that's where they got close, and now they're going to become XYZ, and now that's part of the reason why LeBron went to Miami or whatever it was. That's the same kind of vibes that I get with our recruiting class right now. It is, Willie is putting in some work. One of the things he said at media days is that he hasn't had to get on a plane to recruit, which I think is definitely a benefit. I know you and I aren't always the biggest, you need to recruit Houston, just go get good players. That's what we believe. But if you're getting the good players in Houston, it's where you got to start. Yeah. I'm A-okay with this. I don't think you'll ever be able to build a fence and keep the top guys, all the top guys, but boy, right. Is this a really good start for the staff. I'm glad you mentioned that. That was one of those points I had at the end, is that 11 of the 14 guys who are committed so far are from Texas, and the other 3 are from Louisiana. Which in my opinion, if you're a school in Houston, that's almost an extension of in-state recruiting, especially if they're coming from Baton Rouge or Acadiana, which I think all those guys are from. Yeah. You pitch out to New Orleans. You kind of build a lot. You draw a circle around, New Orleans, Lafayette, all that, and then to your point, you kind of go up, and you maybe go north of Houston a little bit. The same way I feel if you're a DFW school, Shreveport is almost like recruiting in state too, Yeah. Yep. I would say my last kind of general big picture thought here, this is where I wanted U of H football to be recruiting wise after the Big 12 move. We said it 100 times in here. You said it a moment ago. You're never going to entirely fence off the greater Houston area from the bigger Texas programs. Really the big insert, there's big national parts. Certainly the big SEC programs. If LSU comes in for a guy in Houston, it's going to be tough. Exactly. Let's just be honest. Yeah. So that's never going to be a realistic outcome. But if you're U of H, you could still be a developmental program for not just the 3-star kind of guys who come to the college game with a bit of a chip on their shoulder and who develop into ass kickers to the next level. Now with this Big 12 affiliation, you can now get the higher end talents like Warren, like Melvin Jr., who may not have considered U of H in previous seasons, and now might give you a look. And then, when it became official 4-ish years ago that
the move to the Big 12 was happening, this is exactly the realistic place I believe U of H could occupy. Maybe you're now a bit more likely to get unicorn recruits like Keyshawn Henderson, like Ed Oliver, but even in recruiting cycles where you don't get those guys, you could still get talented players who have the same chip on their shoulder that I think you need to succeed here. Because I would imagine these guys, highly rated recruits, consensus 4 stars, among the best in Texas. I bet like if you gave them truth serum, because they play against these guys at camps, they think that there's a 5-star guy. Well, I beat him 3 times at this camp. Like, but that guy's never beat me once in 7-on-7. Or that guy, like we beat him in district playoffs. Like, as well rated as Melvin Jr. and Warren are, I bet those two are still coming to college with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder as well.
I agree. I think this is where U of H, where we thought that they should probably be living in recruiting once we made that Big 12 move. Right now, this class is the 46th ranked, second highest average recruit. And look, you're not going to your point, you're not going to get a Keyshawn Henderson every year. Those are few and far between, let alone a quarterback at a 5-star.
Slightly better chance you might get him now, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think U of H, recruiting-wise, with its location, conference affiliation, all of that, there's no reason to think that this program couldn't be a top 45 recruiting class every year. I don't think we'll ever be a school that's getting the number 3 class or anything like that. But
Agreed,
if you can live where Baylor was in the Art Briles era, are you really upset if you're a U of H fan? I mean, right now their class for 2026 is top 25. It's number 26. I'm sorry. I mean, you look at like 2010 for them, rank at 36. There's no reason to believe that U of H can't recruit at that level, right? Top 45, I think, would be a fair expectation, kind of going forward for this program.
All right, Bobby, my orange cat is attacking my hand repeatedly.
I could hear that. I could hear that,
Bob. Because he thinks we've talked enough about Cougar sports. So can you do as you always do and skillfully take us home?
Of course. Well, that is it for this week. As Sam said, we spoke a lot longer than I thought we were going to this week. We just started talking about UCF and
just love talking about those Cougs, man.
And Big 12 Media Day, man. No. But if you have any feedback for us, please find us on social media at SH Podcast or on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. You can also, if you've sworn off social media, good for you. I'm not strong enough to do that. You can email us shpodcast@gmail.com. You can certainly find us there. And then you can also find us on Patreon, SH Podcast, or patreon.com/SH Podcast. Just uploaded pretty much raw audio files from Media Day. So if you're kind of like, oh, I wonder what these guys did say, you can go listen to it. You can hear the interviews, things like that. So really, really good stuff there. And then if you I haven't shouted them out in a little bit, go follow the Mothership podcast at the 1012 network. Those Philip's doing some great work over there. And go see any of our fellow 1012 network members. But again, find us on social media. You can email us, shpodcast@gmail.com. Find us on Patreon. We appreciate you guys listening, even in the dog days of summer. And Sam, what do we always say?
Go Cougs, buddy.
All right. Go Coogs! Let's go!